A couple months ago, Nintendo finally, after so many years, announced that they are making LEGO sets for the Super Mario series. Didn't they already have LEGO Mario set? Those don't count. I am a huge fan of LEGOs and the Mario series, so I was pretty disappointed when the LEGO Mario sets didn't follow the standard minifigure scale. That's not to say they haven't made any good Mario sets. I adore basically all of the 18+ builds and think they're some of my favorite LEGO sets ever made. Still though, I always wanted to see Mario minifigures, which made me super excited that they're finally releasing some sets next year. But in addition to Mario, we recently got the release of LEGO Pokemon. A lot of these sets also look fantastic. I don't own any of them though because... But with so many Nintendo franchises getting LEGO sets, it made me wonder about what else we might see LEGO make in the future. As these sets have come out, I've seen a lot of people take these LEGO versions of characters and slap them onto the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate roster. But that then leaves the question, who is going to join the LEGO characters next with a LEGO form of their own? There are over 60 characters in the Smash Ultimate roster that don't appear in any LEGO set. So today, I thought it'd be fun to rank all of them based on how likely I think it is for that character to appear in LEGO. Is this an incredibly stupid video idea? No, shut up! Okay, maybe a little, but the last video did so well that I can afford to make a silly video like this. Keep in mind that this video is based on likelihood and not necessarily who I want to see in LEGO personally. While this will be a normal numbered ranking list from worst to best, I'll also separate this video off into 5 tiers as I feel like a lot of characters have pretty similar chances to one another. Throughout this video, I may also show some creations others have made for these characters. I'll make sure to have them all linked in the description as I highly recommend checking out what everyone else has been able to create. So if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's jump right in. Before we get into the ranking itself, I think it would be pretty helpful to list who has already appeared in LEGO so we know who I'm not going to rank today. So far, 10 of Smash's franchises have already had their characters appear in LEGO sets. That might sound impressive, but 4 of these are Mario.
Hello, Mario.
Despite me not being a big fan of the digital LEGO Mario line, it did still bring us a ton of characters from the Smash roster. Even though most of these aren't minifigures, I'm still gonna count them, since this video is just about appearing in LEGO period rather than being a minifigure. In the LEGO Mario line, we got Mario, Luigi, Peach, Bowser, Bowser Jr., all of the Koopalings, and Piranha Plant. Alongside them, we also got Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong, Yoshi, and Wario, which are technically classed under their own separate franchises in Smash, but we all know the truth. Now, technically, you could also say that Daisy appeared in LEGO form as well. In the LEGO Game Boy set, it comes with a build that's meant to replicate the cartridge for Super Mario Land. If you look closely at the art, you'll be able to see that Princess Daisy is indeed pictured. But I think you all would kill me if I counted that, so Daisy will still be in the ranking. The other franchise I mentioned in the intro was Pokemon, and they also got a good chunk of their characters from the Smash roster in LEGO form, probably because both are obsessed with Gen 1. We got Pokemon Trainer Red, Pikachu, Jigglypuff, Squirtle, Charizard, and Mewtwo. What did they do to you? The Pokemon line is still in its very early stages, but LEGO seems to be going very hard with it, so I'm sure we'll be getting a ton more sets in the future. The Legend of Zelda also got a couple sets, and they're both absolutely phenomenal. I got both of them, and I'm a super huge fan. In those sets, we got fantastic minifigures for Breath of the Wild Link, Ocarina of Time Link, Ocarina of Time Zelda, Young Link, and Ganondorf. You may have noticed that I specified the specific games there. That's because the Smash series actually used multiple different Links and Zeldas in each Smash title. Personally, my favorite Link is the Hero of Time, but a lot of other people are fans of Twilight Princess Link, who was used in Brawl and Smash 4. So for fun, I decided to add Twilight Princess Link and Zelda, along with A Link to the Past Zelda, into the ranking, since they're all technically different characters than the ones we got in LEGO. I know Sheik is technically different between the Smash games as well, but I'm only going to be counting her once for this list since she only canonically appears in Ocarina of Time. After the Zelda franchise, the last Nintendo character to appear in LEGO form was Isabelle in the Animal Crossing sets. There are also 3 third-party characters that have gotten LEGO sets based off of them. Sonic was originally released in LEGO Dimensions and eventually got his own line of sets. I don't have any of the Sonic series sets, but I did buy his LEGO Dimensions pack along with the Adventure Time packs before even getting the game. but then Finn looked disappointed in me, so I bought the game too. Pac-Man also recently got a Lego set based on his arcade cabinet, which I haven't gotten myself, but does look pretty cool. And finally, we have reached my main, don't make fun of me, Minecraft Steve, who was the first character on the Smash roster to appear in Lego. I used to be a really big fan of the Minecraft line of Lego sets, and had almost all of them for a while. I haven't gotten a minifigure Minecraft set in a bit, but I have recently gotten the Creeper and Crafting Table sets, which I think are really cool. Steve, Alex, Zombie, and Enderman all have appeared numerous times in Lego sets, so they're all good to stay off the list. But with our list of already existing Lego characters set, it's time we move on to the ranking itself. I'll be judging a character's likelihood of appearing in Lego on a number of different factors. If a character is part of a franchise that is already getting sets, that obviously helps them quite a bit. Franchise popularity and recency also helps in determining if Lego would want to make a set for them. If a character has an iconic build to make a set out of, that would also help them too. There are a couple of other factors, but those are the primary ones we'll be dealing with today. So I think it's time for us to kick off our F tier, the characters that I cannot see in a million years getting in a set. This is made up of our bottom 10 characters, and while a lot of their likelihoods are pretty similar, I think there's honestly a pretty big gap between the rest of them and last place. 67, Bayonetta. Obviously. She has basically everything working against her here. Is she from a popular franchise? Compared to the rest of the Smash roster? Is she a Nintendo franchise? No, she's owned by Sega. They have worked with Lego on the Sonic sets, but I think Nintendo is far more likely to get more of their franchises made into sets. But the biggest issue of all is that she's from an M-rated series. Lego does not like making sets based off of mature properties, so I highly doubt that Bayonetta of all things would be the first one. With that said, Lego, if you ever change your mind, please make Attack on Titan sets. 66, Snake. Very similar issues to Bayonetta, though Metal Gear Solid is a significantly more popular franchise. I don't think it's so popular that it would break Lego's no M-rated set rule, but in a world where Lego didn't care, I think Snake has a far better shot of making it. 65, Joker. Wait a minute. This guy already has a Lego. Here we have our final M-rated character, and I feel like of the three, he's got the best shot. While the Persona franchise hasn't sold quite as much as Metal Gear Solid, Joker also has the advantage of being owned by Sega like Bayonetta. Persona 5's visual style could also lend itself to a really cool looking Lego set, which I think does help it out a tiny bit. In all honesty though, I don't think a Persona set is how he gets made into Lego. The best chance I think Joker has for appearing in a Lego set is if they make a set based on Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. Joker was one of the collab characters in that game, and since he's also owned by Sega, it wouldn't be too much of a rights hassle to get them both in a Lego set together. Now keep in mind, I absolutely do not think this would ever happen, but I do honestly think it's a bit more likely than a Persona 5 set ever being made. 64, Terry. A Fatal Fury Lego set would be the first one to sell 0 units. Fatal Fury is luckily not an M-rated franchise. It is T for teens, but Lego has made plenty of sets based on PG-13 movies, so I think it's fine. The issue is just the audience. As far as I can tell, Fatal Fury and King of Fighters have sold less than Bayonetta has, which was already on the low end of franchises in Smash. I know that's not fully accurate since a lot of people know Terry from arcade cabinets, but I certainly don't think there's much desire on Lego's end to make a set for this franchise. The owners of the series, SNK, have also never worked with Lego before, so that doesn't help Terry's chances either. 63, Lucas. We finally made it to our first Nintendo character. Considering Nintendo can't even be bothered to translate Lucas's game, Mother 3, into English, I doubt that Lego would ever want to make a set on it. Lucas is also our first character to come from a franchise with multiple fighters in Smash, and if the Mother franchise is ever lucky enough to somehow get a one-off set, it would 100% be based on Earthbound and feature Ness instead. I like you, Lucas, but it's sadly never happening. 62, Dark Samus, and 61, Dark Pit. These are both dark variants of characters from franchises that would be lucky to get a Lego set. I do think Dark Pit has a higher chance of being in a Kid Icarus set than Dark Samus does of being in a Metroid set, but both of them will probably not be happening. 60, Min Min. No one cares about ARMS. The franchise only has one game, and it got pretty mixed reception. It sold pretty solid, better than Xenoblade. But I think that's obviously because it came out so early in the Switch's life cycle. Most people doubt Nintendo will ever even make another ARMS game in the future, so there's no reason to expect a LEGO collab. Especially since this would require LEGO to make some weird new springs for the ARMS, and the effort just doesn't seem worth it. 59, Pyra and Mythra. I'm combining them together since I think if a Xenoblade 2 set is ever made, they definitely come together. That said, I don't think a Xenoblade 2 set will ever happen. The franchise is just too niche, and if it was lucky enough to get a one-off set, it would almost certainly be based on the first game with Shulk instead. From the very little Xenoblade Chronicles discourse I've heard, 2 seems to be the most controversial main game as well, hurting its chances for a set even more. 58, Corrin. First LEGO set to sell negative copies. Corrin is pretty universally seen as the least deserving character to be in Smash. There are already so many other Fire Emblem characters that he just leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouths. Even Fire Emblem fans don't seem to like the game he's from, so getting an entire set based off of it seems pretty unlikely. That said, I do think there is a way for Corrin to weasel his way into a LEGO set. Personally, I don't think the Fire Emblem franchise is big enough to get a line of sets, nor do I think there's a super iconic build that would make LEGO tempted to make a one-off. However, it does have a lot of characters. Smash fans have made that pretty clear. LEGO doesn't always make full sets. Sometimes they just release minifigures in their own separate blind bags. I'm sure most people watching this have probably gotten a few of these, but for those that don't know, essentially these bags would contain a random character from a specific franchise. So basically it's gambling. Oftentimes, these blind bags are based on series that are already getting sets, like the Lego Movie, DC Comics, and even technically Mario with their enemy packs. However, there have been a few franchises that have only gotten these minifigure packs and never gotten any sets. Looney Tunes, for example, started out as a minifigure pack before it ever got any sets. Look, I got Wile E. Coyote. So I think, if Nintendo really wants to work with LEGO, they could make a small Fire Emblem minifigure series. This would certainly be the most niche franchise to ever get blind bags, but Nintendo definitely loves Fire Emblem enough to potentially push for it. I still don't think it's super likely or anything, but I think it's the Fire Emblem character's best shot. That said, even if they did this, I could see them cutting Corrin from it, as they're not really a beloved character. Being in Smash certainly helps, but I think if anyone from Smash isn't making it to the pack, it's probably Corrin. Also, if you're wondering if they do make a LEGO Corrin, I think it'll be the female one.
Good.
And with that, we have finally escaped our F tier and we can make it to our C tier characters. These are the ones that I still think are incredibly unlikely, but in the right circumstances, I could see them getting in a LEGO set if they're really lucky. Starting this tier off, we have 57, Banjo and Kazooie. The main issue here is just the fact that only 80-year-olds would ever buy a set from them.
Oh, it's my favorite Scrimly from when I was a young boy.
Banjo-Kazooie sucks! It's a terrible game! It's bad, it's bad, it's bad! So yeah, I don't think there's a big enough overlap with the LEGO audience for the set to be made. LEGO certainly has made sets based on old IP before, but those are generally much more popular. As for what's keeping these two out of F tier, since Microsoft already works with LEGO to make the Minecraft sets, there could be a chance if one of the companies just really wants to make a Banjo set. Unlike some of the other third parties you've mentioned before, Banjo is also perfectly kid-friendly, so LEGO would have no reason to worry. That said, I don't think a set based on the franchise is these two's best chance. The Minecraft line of sets feature a ton of custom skins outside of just the default Steve and Alex, and the other ones.
Who are you people?
While most of these are just meant to be unique characters, there was a skin made for the Illager raid set that was directly based on Kai from LEGO Ninjago. Since LEGO Minecraft is clearly open for crossovers, and Banjo and Kazooie is owned by Microsoft, I could see a set in the future featuring a Banjo skin. Heck, Banjo already has an official Minecraft skin on the Xbox versions of the game, so while I wouldn't call it likely, I do think this has a higher chance for Banjo than a set based on his own franchise. 56, Ice Climbers. Same issue as Banjo that only 80-year-olds would care, but at least no one is pretending Ice Climbers is a good game. I highly doubt that they would have a set based off of them specifically, but Nintendo does love to make retro references. We've already had several retro sets based on the NES and Game Boy, with a Donkey Kong arcade cabinet coming soon. Now obviously, those are all much more important than Ice Climbers, but I could see Nintendo potentially making a small set containing a ton of NES games. I'm thinking of something like the Magic of Disney set, which showed off a ton of different movies at once. I definitely think of the remaining retro characters though, they're the least likely. 55, Palutena. Kid Icarus as a franchise is currently dead. It could come back if Nintendo wants to make a new game, but I think Kid Icarus fans should focus on wanting that to happen first. I also can't personally think of anything super iconic enough to be a LEGO set, and even if I could, it's very likely that Pit would be the only minifigure included. 54. Richter. Castlevania doesn't seem like a big enough franchise to warrant its own LEGO theme, and LEGO has never worked with Konami. If they did want to do a one-off set, I feel like Simon would also probably be the one featured, so that lowers Richter's chances even more. You're still better than Simon in my heart, it's okay, Richter. 53. Kazuya. LEGO has worked with Namco before on the Pac-Man set, but Tekken also just doesn't feel like a franchise that fits well with the LEGO brand. I think if LEGO wanted to work with a fighting game franchise, there's a much more likely one that they'd go for instead. 52. Shulk. Xenoblade is a very niche franchise, but it is still an ongoing franchise by Nintendo. Judging by how often it shows up in directs, we've gotten 3 new Xenoblade games before a single 3D Mario. Nintendo, why? It's clear that Nintendo loves this franchise, so there's a decent chance they beg LEGO to make a one-off set for the series. If they did, there are 2 main set ideas that come to mind for me. I've never played the game, so maybe there's something better, but I could see either a minifigure scale metal face or a buildable model of the Monado. I'd say those both fit pretty well with LEGO's brands of sets, and the Monado certainly has a very recognizable design. Shulk would also be included no matter what set they chose here, so I think he has a chance, even if it is still pretty unlikely. 51 through 46, most of the remaining Fire Emblem characters. In order of my ranking, those are Lucina, Ike, Chrom, Roy, Robin, and Byleth. I have them all here because I think that hypothetical minifigure pack I mentioned earlier is really their only chance of ever appearing in LEGO. Marth does have something else going for him, which I'll get to a bit later, but I think these 6 are all just about as likely as one another. If they do make the Fire Emblem minifigure pack, I feel like all 6 of these characters would probably be there. I do think there are slight variations in their likelihood, but only slight. Lucina, for example, I feel like is the least likely, except for you, since she is so similar to Marth, who would basically be the only character 100% guaranteed to be in a pack like this. Fire Emblem has a lot of popular characters that are not on the Smash roster, so I could see LEGO cutting Lucina to keep each of the characters feeling more unique. That's also why I decided to keep Ike and Chrom as the next 2, being some more blue-haired sword fighters. From what I know about Fire Emblem though, these 2 are pretty popular, especially Ike. I like Ike. Roy is next on the list, as his red hair visually sets him apart quite a bit from Marth. Robin is the most unique Fire Emblem fighter in Smash, and he's from one of the most popular Fire Emblem games, so he has a very good shot. Finally, I put Byleth as the most likely. While they do share Marth's blue hair, they are also from the most popular Fire Emblem games, so excluding them would likely feel like a disservice to the fans. Also, I think gender-wise, Robin and Byleth would be the opposite of one another, so if Robin is male, then Byleth would be female, and vice versa. Again, I don't think a Fire Emblem minifigure pack is the most likely thing in the world, which is why this franchise is still placing quite low, but I could see it happening if Nintendo begs hard enough. 45. Wii Fit Trainer. This is a completely dead franchise, considering the Wii is also completely dead. However, earlier I mentioned Nintendo making retro sets based on the NES and Game Boy. I could see this trend continuing until they make a set for the Wii. In fact, I could even see them jumping straight to the Wii, as it's one of their most popular consoles, and the demographic that grew up with the Wii are the ones who would likely be buying these large LEGO sets. If they make a Wii set, I could totally see Wii Fit being referenced in some way, as it's one of the console's biggest titles. Maybe the set would even come with a LEGO Wii balance board. Obviously though, if any game is getting referenced, it's gonna be Wii Sports, so Wii Fit has to hope that the LEGO Wii set would want to reference multiple games. Even then, Wii Fit Trainer isn't a required part of Wii Fit. I could see them stopping at just including the Wii balance board with no Wii Fit Trainer in sight. Optimally, a Wii Fit Trainer minifigure would be amazing, but it does seem a bit far-fetched. 44. Simon. Already talked a bit about Castlevania with Richter, but with Simon being the series' first protagonist, I think it makes him much more likely to appear in a set. I certainly wouldn't call it a good chance, but there's definitely a possibility. 43. Zero Suit Samus. I'll talk more about Metroid's chances for a set in a bit, but Zero Suit Samus would clearly not be the first choice for a minifigure. Her only chance is if a Metroid set decides to contain 2 Samus minifigures, as obviously the armored look is getting priority. LEGO sets have included multiple versions of the same character before though, so I don't don't think that's impossible at least. 42, Pit. And our final entry of C tier is the main face of Kid Icarus himself. I've already talked about how unlikely I think it is for Kid Icarus to get a set, but Pit does at least get a good boost from being the main character. Previously in the Ice Climber segment, I mentioned that Nintendo could possibly make some sort of NES collection set, and I think Pit would fit right in there. There's also a chance that LEGO decides to make sets based on the Mario movies now that they're using minifigures. If you remember, the very first movie contains a scene where Mario plays Kid Icarus on the TV, so if they make a set out of Mario's room, they could have a couple tiles to represent Pit on the screen. That'd probably be the saddest LEGO representation of any character, but I guess it'd be better than nothing. It's time to move on to our B tier. Now we're getting into the characters that I think have a legitimate chance, though it would still require some of them to get very lucky. Most of these I envision appearing in a one-off set that LEGO likes to do from time to time, so it all depends on if LEGO just decides to do that or not. These first two though are a slightly different case, being 41 Ness and 40 Marth. Now, it may seem weird to rank these two together, after all, they're from totally different franchises. I've also already mentioned that both of their franchises seem extremely unlikely to receive sets of their own, so what makes me put these two in B tier? Well, while I was making this video, an idea popped into my head. What's stopping LEGO from making a Smash Bros set? Smash Bros is one of Nintendo's most popular franchises, so I think a set based on the series could do really well. Obviously it's a bit weird due to being a crossover franchise, but that hasn't stopped LEGO before, especially when it comes to the LEGO minifigure pack series. There have been a couple packs made for Disney as a brand, which include characters from a ton of different franchises. You're not going to see Peter Pan and Mr. Incredible in Toy Story 5. I mean, I think. I haven't watched it. So really, what's the difference between doing these Disney series and a Smash Bros minifigure series? Obviously, if they did this, that opens the door to basically any character in this video, but I think there are some that are certainly more likely. I'm almost certain that a pack like this would be exclusively Nintendo characters, and if we're looking about 18 for a character count, they'll have to limit it to just the most iconic characters. To get these packs to sell, they'd also probably have a couple Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon reps filling up the slots, so our open spaces for new franchises are even more limited. Luckily though, I think there are some characters Nintendo just can't make a pack like this without. While Earthbound may not be super popular, Ness in Smash Bros certainly is, as he was one of the first characters added in Smash 64. Marth is also the face of Fire Emblem and Smash, which is both an ongoing franchise and one of Smash's franchises with the most characters. So I think these two are basically guaranteed inclusions if Nintendo makes a Smash Bros minifigure pack, especially since they're both humanoid, so they'd be pretty easy to make as well. If a pack like this does happen, I think that boosts a chance for a lot of the previous characters as well, since they could always make a second pack to include some of the more obscure fighters. But since there hasn't been any precedent yet, I think only having Ness and Marth in B tier is fair. Oh, and I think Pit would also have a very good chance to be in this, but I don't think he's quite a guarantee like these two, so that's why he's still in C tier. 39, Little Mac. Similar to Marth and Ness, I think he would have a pretty good shot of being in a Smash Bros minifigure series, though he's definitely a little less likely than those two. He also has a similar advantage that Pit got from the Mario movie, as Little Mac himself actually makes a cameo in the Mario Galaxy movie. On top of that, the restaurant Mario and Luigi eat at in the first movie is based on Punch-Out!, so it's almost a guarantee that there would be a Little Mac reference if they make a set out of that. Additionally, I just think Punch-Out! Has a small sliver of a chance for a one-off set. Sure, the franchise in current day is definitely dead, but it did used to be quite popular, so I could see it getting some sort of retro reference set. 38 Sephiroth and 37 Cloud. Final Fantasy VII is a very popular game, which makes both Sephiroth and Cloud very iconic characters. We're still getting releases for the remake to this day, so I think a Final Fantasy set could totally happen. It is a T-rated game, which could maybe hurt its chances a smidge, but I think some sort of set based on Midgar or something would look really cool. I think no matter what they do, both Cloud and Sephiroth would be in it due to just how iconic both of them are, though obviously Cloud is slightly more likely due to being the main protagonist. This franchise is also held back by Square Enix, who have never worked with LEGO and are often known for being quite stingy with their IP, but I still don't think it's impossible. 36 Hero. Same Square Enix issues as Cloud and Sephiroth, but I think Dragon Quest might fit with LEGO slightly better. I personally would much rather buy a Final Fantasy VII set, but I've never played either of them. I'm LARPing. I could see LEGO making a giant slime model and including one of the heroes with the set, likely Aerodric or the Luminary if I were to guess. Also, I probably should have ranked the heroes separately like I did with the different versions of Link and Zelda, but I honestly don't have enough experience with the franchise to make a confident ranking. From least to most likely, I'd probably say Solo, 8, Aerodric, and Luminary, with the last two basically being tied. 35, Ken. Here we got our fourth third-party character in a row, though he's not owned by Square Enix this time. LEGO have still never worked with Capcom before, but I think they'd be much more open to a crossover compared to Square Enix. Street Fighter is also a pretty popular franchise that is still ongoing to this day, so I think a set based on the series is more than possible, especially after the reveal of the Donkey Kong arcade cabinet. LEGO seems to have a thing for the arcade games recently with Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, along with some non-IP builds like the pinball machine. Street Fighter is one of the most well-known arcade series out there. Obviously they have plenty of console releases as well, but I think their arcade cabinets are going to be the thing that gets them a LEGO set. I could totally see a play feature that has two minifigures fighting against one another, similar to how the Donkey Kong and Pac-Man arcade cabinets are somewhat functional. Now if this were to happen, Ryu would obviously be in the set for sure, but Ken is not quite a guarantee. His chances are significantly helped since a Street Fighter set would basically require having two characters, but they could swap Ken out for someone like Chun-Li. I still think it's more likely than not that Ken is included since he is very iconic, but it also wouldn't shock me if Chun-Li was in his place instead. Either way, I think a Street Fighter arcade cabinet set could be pretty cool. 34, Mega Man. Mega Man is our other main Capcom rep, and while his franchise is definitely the smallest of the last few we've talked about, I think it could fit quite well with the LEGO brand. A small playset of Mega Man going against Dr. Wily, or a big set centered around basically anyone like the Yellow Devil would be perfect. Really, he's just being held back by the fact that LEGO hasn't worked with Capcom before, and if they did, they'd probably do a Street Fighter set first. 33, Olimar and Alf. Pikmin certainly isn't the biggest Nintendo franchise, but boy you can tell they absolutely love it. They adore including Pikmin in anything. I mean, even just recently, they decided to hide a bunch of Pikmin in Mario Wonder Switch 2 edition for literally no reason. So honestly, if we were just talking about the Pikmin, I think they have a much better chance than the captains. Like, I think LEGO could just throw a Pikmin into a random Mario set if they wanted. Olimar and Alf, though, would probably have to be in an actual Pikmin set, but luckily, I don't think that's too unlikely. There are a ton of options for a Pikmin set. They can make a giant Pikmin, a Bulboard playset, or one of the series spaceships. LEGO loves making sets based on vehicles and spaceships, so any character that has one tied to them helps their chances quite a bit. I don't think the Pikmin spaceships are the most iconic compared to some of the others we haven't talked about yet, but I could see it being a one-off set. Olimar is also definitely more likely than Alf, but I think there's a good chance they would just be included in a set together. Olimar would also have a very high chance to appear in a Smash Bros. Minifigure series if they did one. 32, the Miis. I decided to make this segment combine all of the Mii fighters together under one Mii label, mostly because I don't think a Mii Sword Fighter minifigure specifically is ever going to happen, so it's much more interesting to talk about if I think Miis as a whole will ever appear in LEGO. I already talked about a potential LEGO Wii set earlier, and if that were to happen, the Miis would 100% be included somehow. They're just way too tied to that system's identity. The Miis are also present in a ton of different games, so LEGO could really just decide to make a set based on any of them. The only real thing holding the Miis back is the fact that they're supposed to be custom characters and aren't really characters by themselves. But seeing as we got custom Minecraft skins, I don't really see the problem with doing the same for Miis. 31, Duck Hunt. We have ourselves another retro character, but I think he's got a higher chance to appear in LEGO than someone like the Ice Climbers. For starters, one of these games is a little more popular than the other. Secondly though, I think the Duck Hunt dog has a very clear set that he could be part of. One of the big 18+ Mario sets was a recreation of his and Yoshi's sprites from Super Mario World. I could definitely see LEGO doing a similar thing for the Duck Hunt dog. Maybe as a play feature, it could even poke its head out from behind the grass and do its iconic laugh. I don't think most of the other retro characters would fit this sprite style quite as well, but Duck Hunt's sprite in particular is pretty iconic.
It was in pixels.
If they wanted, they could also do a recreation of the NES Zapper, though LEGO might have some reservations about basically making a gun. 30, Ridley. As the most iconic villain from Metroid, it is pretty likely that he would be one of the characters to come in a Metroid set. Actually, forget just coming in a set, he could totally just be the set. Before Ridley joined the Smash roster, people thought it was impossible for him to be added because of just how big he is. However, that size would actually help him quite a bit when it comes to being a LEGO set, as he could very easily be the focus of an entire build. I'm thinking of something like the final battle set from Ocarina of Time, just replace Ganondorf and Link with Ridley and Samus. Zelda could be Miles McKenzie.
Win?
The biggest issue that Ridley would face is just the fact that Metroid is obviously not as popular as something like Zelda, but I do think it's just popular enough to get a one-off set. 29. Wolf. Remember how I mentioned LEGO loves their spaceships? Star Fox is the Nintendo spaceship franchise. Of all the Nintendo series that don't already have sets, Star Fox might just have the most obvious ideas for builds. An R-Wing set is the most obvious, but there's even stuff like the Great Fox, Landmaster, and Wolf ship the Wolfen. I think we could totally see a set based around an R-Wing and Wolfen facing off against each other. Or if they want, they could even do them separately as smaller sets. Now Star Fox does feel like the type of series that would get a very limited number of sets since the franchise isn't Nintendo's most popular. That said, with Nintendo clearly interested in keeping the franchise alive, I don't think it's too unlikely for at least a one-off set to be made. Wolf is definitely the least likely Star Fox fighter in Smash to make it, but I think they would still try to fit him in. 28. Sora. I mentioned before that LEGO's worked with Disney in the past, so they could honestly just throw Sora randomly into another Disney minifigure pack. Obviously he's a bit different than the other characters since he's from a video game, but I don't see that being any reason to stop them. There have also been plenty of one-off sets for Disney properties like WALL-E and Nightmare Before Christmas, so a Kingdom Hearts set doesn't seem impossible to me. The main thing that would hold Sora back is of course the fact that he's owned by Square Enix. Honestly though, I think if Mickey Mouse wants LEGO Sora to happen, it's going to happen. It'd also be very funny if a Kingdom Hearts set is how Cloud and Sephiroth make it into LEGO. 27. Ryu. I already talked about my thoughts for a Street Fighter set, so I don't really have much to add here. Ryu being the face of the franchise makes him basically guaranteed to get into a LEGO Street Fighter set, which is why he's so much higher than Ken, who might not make it into a LEGO Street Fighter set. 26. Ivysaur. And we have finally arrived to our first character from a franchise that's already getting LEGO sets. Unless you count Sora with Disney, but that's stupid. The main issue with Ivysaur is the fact that it's a middle evolution. Middle evolutions are often a Pokemon's most forgettable stage. There are exceptions of course, but I think it's true for just about every starter trio. Everyone thinks about the first evolution as their first Pokemon, and everyone remembers the awesome final stage that they end up as. So that's why, for the Kanto starters, we already have sets based on their final evolutions and their first evolutions. The only people that think about Ivysaur are Smash players, and Ivysaur is only here because Sakurai wanted to represent the evolution mechanic. With there being literally over 1,000 other Pokemon that have not appeared in LEGO yet, I don't see them jumping at the idea to make an Ivysaur set. Gen 1 nostalgia is a powerful thing though, so they absolutely still could, but I think most people got their fill with the Bulbasaur and Venusaur sets. 25. Zelda from A Link to the Past. Of our remaining Zelda reps, I definitely think she's the least likely to appear in LEGO. When it comes to the Zelda franchise, the 3D games are definitely the most beloved, so I think we'd see sets for games like Wind Waker and Twilight Princess far before we get one for A Link to the Past. Luckily of the 2D games, I think A Link to the Past is certainly the most beloved, making it the most likely to get a set beside maybe the first game. Although I guess technically Link's Awakening is in the Game Boy set, but whatever. Even if we did get a Link to the Past set though, there's no guarantee that Zelda would even be in it, so that's another thing holding her back. However, I do think if the Zelda line keeps pumping out sets, we will see her eventually. It just might take a while. Another positive is the fact that I could see her getting into a Smash Bros. Minifigure pack. Like I said, they would need Zelda characters to fill it up, and they don't usually put characters that were in actual sets in these packs. So Zelda in her Link to the Past outfit would certainly be different enough to be included. And now we have made it to our A-tier characters. These are the fighters that I think have a really good shot at turning into LEGO at some point. I don't think all of them will, but I'm pretty confident that at least some will make it. 24. Captain Falcon. This might be a little bit of a crazy one to place my bets on, considering F-Zero is... but I think he does have a couple things going for him. For starters, he is the Smash Bros. Character. He's a super beloved character in the Smash franchise, and he's been here since the very start, so if they ever make a Smash Bros. Minifigure pack, he is for sure going to be in it. I'm even more sure about him than Ness and Marth. What also helps is the fact that he has a very distinct and iconic looking vehicle in the Blue Falcon. Even if F-Zero isn't super popular, this would make for a really cool LEGO set, and I think I would personally buy it despite only having played the first game. The Blue Falcon has even appeared in many Mario Kart games, so if they make LEGO Mario Kart sets with the minifigures, they could just make Captain Falcon a reference there. Of the A tiers, he's certainly the least likely, but I really feel like there is a chance for him in the future. 23 Meta Knight, and 22 King Dedede. These are our two secondary Kirby characters, which obviously have a lower chance of showing up than Kirby himself. The Kirby franchise, though, is extremely popular, especially when it comes to merchandise. So I think Kirby might just be next in line for what franchise is showing up in LEGO next. However, there are a couple issues I could see this franchise having, which I'll talk about more when I get to Kirby himself. As for these two, I think they would absolutely appear if there was a line of Kirby sets, but if they decided to just go with a one-off, I could see Kirby being by himself. 21. Samus. We've already talked about Metroid quite a bit throughout this video, but what brings Samus up this high is just the fact that she's the main character. While Ridley could absolutely be the star of his own set, that is not the only possible Metroid set I could see being made. Samus's gunship has a very unique design that could easily make for a set by itself or fighting against Ridley. I could also just see them making a big display model of a Metroid. No matter what they go with though, I think Samus would certainly be in it. Even if they don't end up making Metroid sets, she would absolutely appear in a Smash Bros. Minifigure series, as she was one of the first characters featured in Smash 64. So while her franchise may not be as big as Kirby, she does certainly have quite a few possible set ideas that could help her become LEGO. 20. Falco. I already talked about Star Fox and Wolf segment, but I think Falco has a better chance due to him being a little more iconic. The fact that he's part of Fox's crew helps as well, as I could easily see all four of them making it into a set together. Possibly something like the old Ghostbusters sets. 19. King K. Rool. And we're back to a character who's already had sets based on their franchise. The Donkey Kong line of sets didn't last very long, but I could see a couple more being made thanks to Mario getting minifigures. I don't think there would be a ton, but I could very well see K. Rool making it into one as the main villain of the franchise. Or you know what, he might not even need a Donkey Kong set. He could just make it into a standard LEGO Mario set. Spoilers for Donkey Kong Bonanza 3, 2, 1. If they make a new Donk City set, they can include DK, Child Pauline, and K. Rool to reference the final battle from that game. So I think there are plenty of openings for K. Rool, it just depends on what Nintendo wants to make. 18. Villager. Being the main character of the Animal Crossing franchise, it's pretty wild that he hasn't appeared in any LEGO Animal Crossing set yet. The fact that he hasn't yet makes me feel like they want this line to only focus on the animals. However, LEGO Minecraft also didn't get any custom skins and sets for quite a while, so maybe it's just a case of waiting for LEGO to change their mind to eventually throw in a human. Uh-oh. Well, if the Animal Crossing line of sets is dead, at the very least, I could see Villager making it into a Smash Bros. Minifigure pack. 17. Kirby. We already talked about how popular his franchise is, but what about those problems I mentioned earlier? How do you make this a minifigure? I think the Kirby franchise would slightly struggle to fit into the LEGO art style. Obviously, he wouldn't be a humanoid minifigure, but even making him out of bricks seems like a challenge. Oh, hey LEGO Pink Yoshi, how are you doing today? I have an idea. It's Kirby. It's definitely possible for them to make LEGO Kirby sets. Honestly, they might just make the characters their own exclusive molds, but I could see this turning them away from the franchise a bit. Luckily, Kirby is popular enough to make them still consider, but this is an important obstacle to keep in mind. Worst case scenario, they might just make a giant Kirby display model. 16. Fox. While I kind of feel like a Kirby line of sets is more likely than Star Fox, Mr. McCloud over here does have a huge advantage. He was a prominent character in the Mario Galaxy movie, not even just a cameo. If they decide to make sets based on the movie, him and his R-Wing could straight up just be there. Even outside of that, he'd almost certainly be in a LEGO Smash Bros. Minifigure series as well. I feel like Kirby would too, but the minifigure problem does hold him back a bit. Fox McCloud, though, is iconic in Smash, has great options for LEGO sets of his own, and appears prominently in a recent Mario project. To me, all of this points to him being pretty darn likely to come to LEGO. 15. Rob. Similarly to Fox, he also appears in the Mario Galaxy movie. From what I know, it is a less prominent role, but Rob does have another thing working in his favor. He seems like a super obvious choice for a big buildable set. I've said it over and over again, but Nintendo and LEGO love their retro sets, and a buildable Rob sounds like a perfect fit. He played a big part in the Nintendo Entertainment System's original success, so I think he more than deserves being made into a model like Bowser or Piranha Plant. I'd hope for something closer to Piranha Plant in terms of price, but either way, I think it's pretty likely that we will see a LEGO Rob at some point. 14. Mr. Game & Watch. Basically everything I just said applies to this guy as well. He makes for a good retro LEGO set, and he even makes a cameo in the Mario Galaxy movie. I would've said spoilers, but Nintendo put it in the trailers. Thanks for that. This time for his set though, I think it would be the actual Game & Watch console rather than just a model of the character. Nintendo loves making Game & Watch references as it was one of their very first devices, so making a small LEGO set out of it seems like a very possible idea. 13. Inkling. This is our final character from a franchise that isn't already represented in LEGO. Splatoon is one of Nintendo's most successful series. Every single game has been a hit so far, and I don't see the franchise slowing down anytime soon. It's got a very unique look to it, but it would also fit super easily with LEGO as most of the characters are humanoid. The fact that it's so colorful and fun looking as well just makes it seem like Splatoon is a perfect fit for appearing in LEGO. If I were to guess, Splatoon feels like the next franchise Nintendo would want to make sets on. Now since I don't play Splatoon, I don't know exactly what the sets would be, but I would be shocked if they couldn't come up with anything from all the different games we have. And of course, if they somehow don't make a Splatoon line, Inkling would almost certainly make it to a Smash Bros. Minifigure series. 12 and 11, Zelda and Link from Twilight Princess. Personally, I think Nintendo is going to try and make sets for as many of the 3D Zelda games as they can. We only have 2 sets so far, but they're both technically based on different games, being Breath of the Wild and Ocarina of Time. Sure, you could say those are the only 2 to get sets since they're the most iconic Zelda games, but I think with how popular those sets have been, they'd at least try to make sets on the other games as well. I'm not exactly sure what they would choose for a Twilight Princess set, but I think they would make one eventually to fill out the franchise. If they did make a Twilight Princess set, Link would obviously be a part of it, and Zelda would likely be as well, though there is a chance that only Link would make it. If I were to place a bet, I'd say they'd come in some sort of Hyrule Castle set since we don't already have one. But now we have made it to our top 10 in S tier. I think all 10 of these characters will eventually be made in LEGO. I honestly expect this section to go by pretty quick since I feel like it's pretty obvious why for most of these. 10. Incineroar. Being a starter Pokemon gives him a huge advantage over the rest of Gen 7 to be in a set. He also fits minifigure scale extremely well, so if they wanted to make more minifigure sets, they could easily make Incineroar into one. The only thing that would hold him back is the fact that Decidueye and Rowlet might be the more popular starter from that generation. Not to say that if one exists the other can't, but it might slightly hurt Incineroar's chances if they only want to include one starter in a potential Sun and Moon set. 9. Sheik. With the Ocarina of Time remake just around the corner, Nintendo, can you show more footage of that? We got like 4 months. I think another Ocarina of Time LEGO set is almost a given. Maybe the final battle set is all they plan to do for the game, but I would love to see something like a Temple of Time set as well. Whatever else they try to do, I think it would include Sheik. Best case scenario though, I hope we get a line of sets based off the game instead of just an occasional one-off. 8. Greninja. He's also a final stage starter like Incineroar, but Greninja is a much more popular Pokemon. He's also my personal favorite, and he clears the other 2 in his generation. If they make a set with the Gen 6 starter, he's absolutely going to be the one they choose. The only issue I think they would have with making him is just modeling him perfectly to fit as a minifigure. He'd be a bit more complicated than Incineroar, but I think for a character as beloved as him, they would absolutely go through the effort. 7. Dr. Mario. It may seem a little stupid that he's this high up, but come on, we're getting LEGO Mario sets. This is likely going to be a long-lasting line, so if they want to make some variants of Mario, Dr. Mario is a super obvious one. Especially if they want to do a Mario or Smash Bros. Minifigure series. I doubt they'd want to make either of those packs without including Mario himself, so Dr. Mario would be a good way to do it while still giving out a unique minifigure. 6. Toon Link. Personally, I feel like Wind Waker is the most likely Zelda game to get a set based on it that's not tied to a recent release. Not only do people just love the Wind Waker, but its cartoony style would make it fit quite well into LEGO. Most importantly, it's also the Zelda game to be the most vehicle-centric. They're not making a set on Spirit Tracks, bro. Both the King of Red Lions and Tetris Pirate Ship are fantastic options for sets, so I think if Nintendo expands the Zelda line, we will definitely see some Wind Waker representation. 5. Pokemon Trainer Green. I'm honestly a little surprised neither she nor Blue were included in the Pokeball set. Instead, they got replaced by some random picnic nerd. Obviously, Red is the most iconic of the trio, but Green and Blue are both very famous characters as well, so I think they will appear eventually. Green could appear in literally any Gen 1 set at minifigure scale. I think her and Red will eventually work like Steve and Alex do in the Minecraft line. Steve was by himself for the first wave of sets, but after that, him and Alex appeared interchangeably. Now they may do other female Pokemon trainers, but if this line goes on for as long as I think it will, we should see green eventually. 4. Lucario. While not a starter Pokemon, he is incredibly popular regardless, probably the most popular Pokemon from Gen 4. It was honestly a little surprising that he wasn't included in the first wave of sets, but I think he'll be made in LEGO soon enough. He would easily fit in both the minifigure and buildable scale, so it's really only a matter of time before we see him. 3. Daisy. Like I said in the intro, yes, she does already technically appear in LEGO, but we all want a Daisy minifigure. Luckily, she is a very prominent Mario character, appearing in basically every spin-off game and even being playable in the latest Mario title, Mario Wonder. I think there's even an extremely high chance she's part of this wave of Mario sets that hasn't been revealed yet. If I were to guess, they'll probably go pretty generic with the Mario theme at first before diving into more specific games, so they could really just throw Daisy into any set if they want to. If she's not in the first wave of Mario minifigure sets, I'm almost sure that she'd be in the second. 2. Pichu. I know I docked points from Ivysaur for being part of an evolution line that's already in 2 sets, but this is Pichu we're talking about. The baby form of Pikachu. If they're making sets for baby Pokemon like Munchlax, Pichu is 100% getting a set eventually. I think it makes sense for him not to be part of the first wave, since obviously we just got several Pikachu sets, but once those start to come off the shelves, you know Pokemon is going to want their rat represented somehow. It's certainly possible that a Pichu set comes well after Daisy, but I'm confident in both coming out eventually. But alright, we only have one more fighter left. Who could be the only one I haven't talked about yet? No, this can't be true. We've talked about all the Pokemon, every Zelda character, and even the Animal Crossing ones. That means that Mario is the only franchise left. Mario, Luigi, Peach, Bowser, Jr., and Piranha Plant already exist. Dr. Mario and Daisy have been ranked. So that leaves just one more left. Number 1. Rosalina. With Nintendo in love with making Mario Galaxy products, movies, re-releases, DLC, and so on, I think she's almost a guarantee to be part of the Mario minifigure line of sets. She's one of the most popular Mario characters, so other people would probably be upset if she wasn't in the line. The minifigure series is Nintendo's chance to add more of the humanoid characters, and I think she'll absolutely be there. So, for the first time in Odyssey Central history, she takes the number 1 spot as the most likely to get a LEGO minifigure. But anyways, that's it for this video. Do you need a LEGO set with specifically Tennis Steve and hate me for not adding him into the ranking? Let me know in the comments. I was in no way expecting this video to be anywhere close to this long. I wanted to make a short video after my last one, and figured this would be it since I was ranking less characters than normal for a Smash video. Guess I'm just a stupid dumb idiot. Hopefully you all still enjoyed it though, because I had a lot of fun yapping about this. But before I go, I've got to thank my members being Xenon, Magician, WSLA, Meepo, Maidzio2, Guess Who Not, Crazy Dry, Gately, Yokai Watch Deluxe, Spawnzilla, Cuttlefish, Lost Core 58, The Cool Man, Kumo Yasoi, Mr. G, RKJD3930, Expired Crazy Person, Shinsei, Nuclear, DoodleDog222, Aaron0729, Danny Gaming Central, Windows Vista's fan-made content, Genie Vivi Yoso, Leonard Von Hevering, Disco Fama, Cassie Channel, Drop D Mike 75, Virtual Tomato, Daniel Castillo 1262, Anton3669, Smuggy, Guy112, Young Smoky VP7, Flame765, Peanut Browno Gallery, Gorpasaurus, BFDI Macaron, Stephen Hafner, Night Vision 101, PDX, Wilbur, Mogo Mogo Boat, Stuffy Ant, Rich229, Jeho Jim, Magnuson Larslot, Trifector, Tibby, Hippopotamus, Levi Strux, Blessed Tiger, Yanni the Duck, Trader Mo, Mevins 2001, Display Changer, B Major 2003, Sir Musty, Belandor, Cinder CC, Jade Avery, Thicky Reiki, Ungenio TM, Tesseract, JubeTube, Jameson Pageson, Keep, and Christian Flattery Sequel Edition. But anyways, dry bones for Smash, and I'll see you guys next time.